Alright, second day in a row in a suit and tie, going to court to represent the state of Texas. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about tickets and fighting tickets and so forth. So one of the things that I hear a lot from folks that are fighting tickets is, I wasn't doing it, I wasn't speeding, I didn't run the red light, I didn't run the stop sign, whatever. And then I said, well, we have it on video. And most of them are shocked, and so they're like, oh, I want to see the video. I want to see it. We pull up the video, and 99 times out of 100, the video is crystal clear, clearly shows the violation. When it's a speeding violation, you'll see cars flowing by, and then all of a sudden, boom. Not to mention the radar readings of all the cars. And most of you who run a stop sign or a red light probably think you made a complete stop, but if you saw yourself on video, it looks more like a Hollywood stop. Thankfully, most of the officers don't write that unless it's really blatant, but nonetheless, that's something to be aware of. So video systems have come a long way since the old days where they had a VHS recorder in the back trunk wired up to some 80s or 90s quality VHS camera, glued to the windshield. Now most of it is digital, wide-angle lenses, sound recording, optional rear recordings, backseat recordings, etc. So one thing you need to understand is typically the dash cam is recording and capturing video all the time. Now, a lot of the systems don't save all of the footage. However, whenever the officer's emergency lights are activated, it typically goes back in time and starts saving it. So it might be 30 seconds, it might be a minute back in time that it goes back and starts saving, and then it saves everything while the lights are activated. Of course, there's always manual record options too, so something can be saved if something, say an officer sees something. Obviously the easiest thing is just hit the lights on and then it backs up and records. But you can also manually override and just record if you needed to. The camera is capturing traffic all the time, and then when the officer decides to pull you over and turns on the lights, it saves the footage going back. So almost always the footage of the offense is captured and saved. And like I said, they're almost always crystal clear of what happened. Very rare that I dismiss a ticket based on the video because they're so clear. If the video is unclear or for whatever reason, our officers are very well trained, so they typically don't make mistakes, but if the video makes it look like they might have, we'll go ahead and dismiss. But like I said, the videos are so clear that they almost always prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt rather than raise any kind of doubts. So some of you know that I'm a certified police radar and LIDAR laser instructor, so I can teach officers how to use the equipment and get accurate speed ratings and everything. Now, at least in Texas, the high courts, which here we have a Court of Criminal Appeals that's kind of our Supreme Court for criminal cases, and then we have the Texas Supreme Court, which is the high court for civil matters. But they have ruled that radar is absolutely admissible evidence So we don't have to prove the technology, so to speak. It's deemed to be valid science, basically, from court rulings. And so the judges are going to admit radar evidence. Laser or LIDAR is not in that same boat, and so you have to have somebody that can testify to the the scientific parts of it, which is not always easy. And there's a lot more room for user error with the LIDAR than there is radar. The other thing with radar is it always cuts you a break, because there's almost never a perfect angle of the police vehicle to your vehicle when calculating speed, because radar basically sends out a radio wave, bounces off the object and comes back, and the unit calculates all the math. Back in the old days, the officer had to calculate the math and everything, and so there was probably a lot more room for error. But now the units are smart enough, they know if the vehicle's approaching or going away, and there's even units that can calculate the police vehicle speed and do all the math and everything, so you get really accurate readings. Obviously there's some room for error. If the police vehicle is moving, it could pick up something else that's moving and think that that's a stationary object and throw off the speed of the police vehicle, which is why the officer is supposed to verify the speed on the speedometer as well as on the radar to make sure that the radar isn't saying that the police vehicle is stopped, let's say, when actually it's going, say, 30 miles an hour, because then that would add 30 miles an hour to the defendant's speed, which in most cases is going to be a pretty bad ticket, if not a reckless driving arrest. So those are the things that are up to the officer to pay attention to. But by and large, the radar just picks up the moving object and does all the calculations and gives it speed, instantly. And like I said, it's usually in your favor by a couple miles, just because the harder the angle of the radar gun to your vehicle, the more error that you get, and so it reduces the calculated speed. In other words, if the police vehicle was perpendicular to you, it would show 0 because the radar would bounce off your vehicle and it wouldn't detect any movement. It only detects movement coming or going, and so if you're going straight across, there won't be any reading on the radar. So that's why you see so many police vehicles trying to get almost a 90-degree angle to the roadway so that they can catch the cars oncoming and get them that way. Particularly if they have a rear radar, park on the side of the road with the flow of traffic and pick up the cars coming down the road. If they don't have a rear radar, then they have to point basically against the flow of traffic and then make a U-turn to pursue somebody, which is less than ideal. Anyway, I hope that was interesting and helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or comments about all this stuff, and we'll see you in the next video.